Hey, what's going on, y'all? Eric Moser here with Code Red Conversations. Well, looks like it's another day where we're at it again.
Chaos erupted after a deadly police shooting in Memphis. Officials say a group of protesters gathered at the scene, became irate, and started throwing rocks at officers. They damaged police vehicles and a nearby fire station. These protests came after federal officials shot and killed a man they were attempting to arrest. Memphis police officers who were not involved in the shooting were called in to help control those crowds.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? Yeah, I had to show that little clip just to frame what I want to talk about today. I'm Eric Muldrow. Welcome back to Code Red Conversations. I appreciate y'all joining me today. Now, last night in Memphis, from what I gather, we'll read this article together. There was a shooting, and as a result of that shooting, a riot ensued shortly thereafter. So we're going to go through this article. We're going to go through a couple articles together, and I'll give you my opinion. If you're familiar with me, you pretty much know where I'm going to be going here. 24 officers injured in riot after gunman killed by police. At least 24 officers were injured late Wednesday night in Memphis, Tennessee in riots. This after police fatally shot a man who they say rammed police cars and then emerged from his vehicle with a weapon. Although police have not yet named the suspect, two local politicians and family members identify him as 21-year-old Brandon Weber. And I'll address this point here as regarding one of the politicians and the young man. Early Thursday, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation said that the man killed by the U.S. Marshals Service had been wanted on numerous warrants. We'll scroll down here. The suspect's cousin, Demetric Skinner, said Weber was fatally shot and claims as many as 20 shots were fired at him. Now, oftentimes we hear this, we hear so many shots were fired at him, and we wonder why was he shot so many times? Well, if the details are true, that he attempted to ram the police vehicles, or that he did ram the police vehicles, and that he emerged from his vehicle with a gun, and there are multiple police officers who are there in the vicinity when this takes place, I'll respond with the amount of force that I think is necessary. So will the next officer. So will the next officer. We're not sitting over here counting bullets. Officers aren't sitting over there counting bullets. Well, I hear Tim shot 4 times, so I'm only going to shoot 1 time. And I hear my partner over here is shot. No, you respond with the force you think is appropriate, because you don't know whether what they're doing, you don't know whether their shots are going to hit or not. You're shooting with the intention to stop the threat. That's what police officers do. Let me clarify that by repeating that one more time. Police officers do not shoot with the mindset of shoot to kill. They shoot with the intention to stop the threat. And so I'm going to shoot based on my threat perception at that time. Let's move on from there, because I'd like to keep this video as brief as possible. His aunt Yolanda Holmes said police claim he was shooting at an officer. Holmes said Weber was a Friar High School graduate. MDP officers were not involved in the shooting. They were actually called in to assist the Gulf Coast Regional Task Force and the U.S. Marshal Service. So it appeared to be a multi-agency operation. Shortly after the shooting, a chaotic scene erupted in the Fraser area Wednesday evening, with heavily armed police facing off against an angry rock-throwing crowd. Dozens of protesters attacked the police, throwing stones and tree limbs until the angry crowds were finally broken up with tear gas, according to Memphis Police Deputy Director Mike Ryle. None of the officers were injured seriously, which is a good thing. Ryle said the area of Overton Crossing and Argonne Street, which is where the attacks on the officers were happening, was considered a crime scene. Crime scene officers spent the night there. I'm going to see if I can play this video here. I'm not sure what this is. I haven't watched it. So we'll be watching it together.
You okay? You okay? Oh my God. Oh my God. He came up and did what to you? Oh my God. He hit you? He got a roll. Bro, you the fucking, bro, you in the hood, bro. I'm sitting down, gotta hit ass, dude.
I'm thinking that was a reporter who was attacked. That's what it appears to be. Folks caught Luke Jones TV lacking. Got to be careful, bro. Folks done hit the cameraman. Yeah, it looks like one of the reporters or one of the cameramen were hit. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here on this video. I want to move on to the next one. One of the things that I heard also was that the police, when they initially arrived with not wearing tactical gear, even though from what I gathered, the rioting had already occurred, had already started. So the police arrived wearing non-tactical gear in order to not be threatening. Help me, y'all. I mean, honestly, I get what they're trying to do, especially in this PC, ultra-sensitive culture that we're living in now, where everybody gets their feelings hurt, and you have groups like Black Lives Matter out there trying to demilitarize the police, even though the police use military style equipment, because sometimes they do military style operations with raids or with the terrorist activity or terrorist confrontation, or in a case of a riot, you need to be protected. If people want to rise up in mass and try to attack the police based on probably having zero to no information, all they had to do was hear a black man was shot by the police, and then all hell breaks loose. But if they respond, if people respond in a threatening manner, then the police need to bring the necessary amount of force to quell that and to eliminate that potential threat. I'm not talking about violently as the first option. If a riot is taking place, I'm going to wear my protective gear. And if you get the impression that I'm coming across in a military style, then that's on you. But I'm going to make sure my man, if I'm one of the commanding officers out there, one of the sergeants, one of the lieutenants, one of the captains, or whoever, I'm going to make sure that my officers are taken care of. Forget this whole idea of not trying to look threatening. Yes, I want them to look threatening, because that may act as a deterrent for the foolishness that's being allowed out there due to political correctness and this whole assumption that everything is motivated by race. It drives me nuts. My question is to those individuals out there rioting, what did y'all know about this shooting? How much information did you all have about the shooting? Did you just hear that a black man was shot by a cop? So the automatic assumption is that it had to have been racist. Because I guarantee you that there are details that took place that you are completely unaware of. Just like there are details that took place that I don't know, that I'm not aware of. But at the same time, I'm not out there tearing up the streets, tearing up my own communities. It's insane. It is literally insane where we have devolved to as a nation, as a society, as a culture. Specifically speaking on the black community, we allow emotion to blind us sometimes. Yes, our nation has a history of evil and vile treatment towards black folks. Undeniable. You won't get any argument from me. But where we have come nowadays, in comparison to that, we have come a mighty long way. But yet we allow people to manipulate us into believing that things are just as bad as they were during the Jim Crow era, which is complete and utter nonsense. And y'all got to forgive me about getting riled up while talking about this. But this is driving me nuts, because the only ones that are being hurt are those that live in those communities. Now, granted, the majority of people kept their behinds home, and they weren't out there on the streets. And the culture is being swayed by the vocal minority. I get it. I understand that. But those of us with a voice who are passionate about this topic, who are passionate about people in general, need to speak up. When we see wrong, you can't sit back and just act like it's not wrong. You can't make an excuse for poor behavior. Try that at home. Try allowing your kids, let your kids do whatever they want to do, and don't correct them and don't discipline them, and see what happens. You get the same kind of foolishness that we're seeing right now, with people going off, going crazy without waiting for any facts. I've shared this verse before, but I think that it is always worth repeating and bringing to the front of our mind, to the forefront of our minds. Proverbs 18:2 says, "A fool has no delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own opinion." I think that's very fitting in times like this. Do we take delight in learning and gathering information, gaining knowledge? Or do we just want to go? I think last night is a prime example of that. The rioting in the streets. Prime example. Let me check out this, read a little bit of this article. Maybe there's some additional information here. A driver wanted on multiple felony warrants attempted to ram law enforcement, that's the claim, vehicles when officers with a regional U.S. Marshal Service fugitive task force attempted to arrest him in Memphis. In Memphis's Fraser community at 7 p.m., at about 7 p.m. Tennessee Bureau of Investigation spokeswoman Kelly McAllister said. Now, I want to move on to this point here and close this out. There are people who responded to this entire matter, and you get different perspectives. There's one who goes by the name of Tammy Sawyer, who is the Shelby County Commissioner, and she's running for mayor. And her response was, "Every life lost should matter. Every single one. How many times will this be okay? It cannot continue." My question to you, Tammy, is how many times will this be okay? How many times will what be okay? It cannot continue to be. What? Do you know the details? Do you know everything that took place? Do you really? Do you truly know? Why are you acting as if you know all the facts? Were you out there serving the search warrant? Were you out there talking to the marshals? Were you out there talking to the police to figure out what was going on, to figure out what happened? I highly doubt that to be the case. You are pandering, most likely you are pandering to the masses out there to look as if you care because you want political power. You want to be voted in as mayor, so you want to be as woke as possible. That's my perspective. I think that would be a good assumption to make. Now, granted, I don't know. I don't know for sure what she knows, but it kills me like those who everyone wants to rush out to be considered the most socially conscious. There's a fight to be seen as the most socially conscious politician. Anyway, let me continue on. There's another tweet that Tammy appeared to retweet. His name was Brandon Weber. He was 20 years old. He was believed to be shot at least 16 to 20 times today by the police. Please pray for his friends and his family and friends. There are details that still need to be learned because we don't know. Can we please stop acting like young people can never do wrong? Like, can we really stop doing that? Can we show a little patience? Can we show a little bit of restraint? Any of us would get upset if people tried to classify us with animals. I mean, throughout history, we were referred to as being monkeys and animalistic, and racism really blew up during it was already prevalent, but under the Darwinian evolutionary concept, when that became popular in culture, racism expanded exponentially, and particularly towards those of us who are darker in color. But when we act like this, like fools, when we act ignorantly, sometimes we open the door to that criticism. Fair or unfair, sometimes we open the door by acting as if we are animalistic, acting as if we do not have any conscience, we do not have any sense. All I'm saying is, with all through the years with the Jussie Smollett's, when we learned that was a complete lie, with the Milwaukee riot from a few years ago, when an officer shot a black man, and then a riot erupted, come to find out that the officer was black and the suspect had a gun. When we talk about all the things that we've seen over the years, when we talk about the Covington High kids when it made it out to be that they were racist, and it was alleged that they surrounded the Native American man and then come to find out that he walked up to them and that there were some Hebrew Israelites who were making the threatening comments, and those kids basically weren't responding negatively at all. One day I pray, my hope and prayer, most importantly, one day that we would realize, especially during election seasons, that we are so easily manipulated, and that because we're emotional. And I'm talking about black folks. We can be very emotional. Anyone can, not, of course. But when it comes to the issue of race, when we believe that there's even a hint of racism, sometimes we fail to think rationally. We just assume it must be true. There can't be any other reason for this mistreatment other than it to be racially motivated. And we have to stop thinking like that. We will continue to be mistreated, abused, and manipulated, and do all kinds of foolishness as a result, like destroying our own communities. I hope this video will make you guys think a little bit. I hope this video will start a dialogue and a level of communication that is not popular today, because granted, trust me, I know when you start speaking like this, it's the Uncle Toms and the house N-words and the coons and all those comments will fly. But hey, if I got to take the bullet, then so be it. But we have to do better. We have to do better than